This is an amazing plan. You're a genius.
Thank you.
It's true. I'll front you a $50K suitcase.
Don't do it. You're too much of a fuck up.
Maybe we should start smaller.
10K?
Deal.
That was very mature, Rue.
If you pay each girl 1,000, you can flip it for 20, and that's 7K profit. 3 to me, 4 to you.
Thank you, Lori. You won't regret this.
You pay up and re-up in a month.
Terrific.
Rue, if you screw me, I'll have you kidnapped and sold to some real sick people. I always find a way to make my money back. I'm serious.
Okay.
So I finally watched Euphoria, and it may well be the best show on TV at the moment. The acting, the writing, the creativity with which it's shot and edited, the commentary and the humor were all the exact breath of fresh air I needed coming out of the pandemic. It sounds amazing too. The music by Labyrinth especially just adds so much unique character to the show. I love the way Nate's Growing Up soundtrack is used kind of in different ways as we progress through the story, but we'll talk about that another time. And Rue Bennett is definitely another one of those characters with a through line that can be traced right back to Tony Soprano. Does that line run through BoJack Horseman? I think it does. I've seen a lot of people describe the second season as a kind of step down from the first, and while season 2 is certainly doing things differently, I don't think I can get on board with the interpretation that it's worse. I mean, art is subjective, obviously, and your enjoyment may vary depending on what characters and storylines you were invested in from the first season, but there's a lot to appreciate in season 2 as well. I loved the opening where Fezco's grandmother is walking through a strip club with a gun and all these dancers are just watching her like, well, that's gonna be bad for somebody. That montage of Zendaya and Hunter Schafer reenacting all these classic art scenes that convey love was beautiful and sweet and hilarious. I guess the play thing kind of took up a lot of time, but they actually ended episode 7 with the song from Cannibal Holocaust. What more could you possibly want? And one of the most memorable additions that came with the second season was the introduction of the drug dealer Laurie, played with a sort of deadpan sociopathy by comedian Martha Kelly. Laurie is terrifying. In fact, if I had to pick the single most frightening villain on TV right now, well, it'd be Homelander, but Laurie has certainly left an impression as well, and she's only had 3 scenes to do it in. Some of you may have even found this video by searching for that scene we opened on where she threatens to have Rue kidnapped, because Kelly's delivery of that line is just bone-chilling in a way that can't but stick with you. And if we're laughing when Rue is biking and head-bobbing her way out the parking lot with that suitcase full of drugs, it's a nervous laughter. I think, however, there's something much more subtle happening between Laurie and Rue than what's being directly conveyed in their dialogue. For example, Laurie's complete absence of emotion makes it kind of hard to read, but I really don't think she ever expected Rue to be able to pay off the drugs she was giving her.
This is an amazing plan. You're a genius.
Thank you.
Whether Rue intended to pay the money back or not is debatable. Her vague plan, which she admits to her family, was to kill herself at some point, so maybe she just figured she would OD again on all the drugs in the suitcase and die that way? But if that were the case, why did she turn down the $50K bundle Laurie was going to give her? The fact that Laurie was initially willing to go that high is also part of what makes me think entrapping Rue may have been her intent from the beginning. And while her threat is definitely foreshadowing something dark in the coming seasons, I don't necessarily think it's going to have the same immediate drama of Rue being violently kidnapped. I think we're actually being set up for a much more subtle, more protracted exploration of the way drugs and debt are used to exploit people's bodies in real life. People hear the term human trafficking and we think of movies like Taken, but more often than not, it's something that takes place within communities or even family units where people can be entrapped and made to feel obligated by debt or personal relationships or, in this case, chemical dependency. Sam Levinson loves his parallels, and there's an interesting contrast in the way Rue has to be forcibly stripped down, basically at gunpoint, the first time she's brought to this apartment and they're checking for wires, versus the way she voluntarily takes her clothes off to get into the bath when Laurie offers her morphine and stands still like a hummingbird.
Rue, you don't look like someone who's gonna come up with money real soon. You know, a doctor once told me they did brain studies on people who've done a lot of opiates, and that over time, all the chemicals in your brain that make you happy and feel good start to decrease because your body's getting it artificially. But the silver lining is that the things that don't feel good don't feel as bad anymore. You know, if I was going through withdrawal, I would do anything. It's one of the good parts of being a woman. Even if you don't have money, you've still got something people want.
The 5th episode is not only the best of the 2nd season, it's probably one of the best episodes of the series thus far. I don't know how anyone is gonna watch Zendaya smash a door down with her fucking head and then tell me with a straight face that season 2 isn't any good. I'm sorry, but the girl is just wasted on those Spider-Man movies. The ending of this episode is incredibly tense, with Rue trying to sneak out of the apartment without waking anyone up, but it may be an artificial tension. I don't think Laurie was really preventing Rue from leaving, otherwise they probably would have stuck her in the room with a padlock, and there are 2 visuals in this episode in particular which I feel foreshadow a somewhat different form of entrapment. The first is a slow, very deliberate shot where the camera moves down Laurie's hallway while she explains the effects of opiate addiction on the human brain. The camera passes by this first door with the floral, leafy patterns that Laurie takes the drugs from in episode 3. Then we go to the bedroom Rue wakes up in after Laurie gives her the morphine. Then another room we don't see the inside of, and then at the end of the hall is this room that's padlocked from the outside, and as the camera comes in close on the door, we hear a scratching sound coming from the other side. It also looks like this might be a statue of Wile E. Coyote on the table outside. I'm not sure, but if it is, I feel like that might be relevant. Beep, beep. A statue that is definitely relevant, however, is this squirrel figurine perched over the morphine that the camera rests on for a full minute and a half while Laurie is helping Rue into the tub. Morphine is expensive, and I think probably hard to come by on the streets, and squirrels bury their nuts for later consumption, right? So I think this scene is telling us Laurie sees the morphine she's giving Rue as an investment, something she's squirreling away for the future. Then when Laurie retrieves the morphine and needle, the camera zooms out to reveal a corresponding scene from the 1966 comedy The Wrong Box, which I won't be explaining here as the British are a dirty people who don't create art. The procession down the hallway takes us through the slow layers of entrapment that are used to exploit people for their bodies in real life, drugs and debt, and then eventually comes more direct violence where you're locked in. There's a palpable relief when our Roadrunner clears the gate outside Laurie's apartment, but did Rue really escape? It's unclear at first when Rue is screaming it out with her friends and family whether she wants the suitcase because she's craving the drugs that were in it or because it represents a debt to Laurie that she's already been violently threatened over. But by the end of the episode, she goes to Laurie herself, and it's obvious by this point that she's going there for drugs, not to clear part of her debt, which is actually another parallel contrasted against the way she has to be lifted off her feet and dragged inside in the season opener. The show, at least, seems to be telling us Rue will come back to Laurie at some point, and when she does, it's going to be under the momentum of her own 2 feet. And that's my Euphoria video. If people like this, maybe I'll make more. Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching. I'll try to have some more content out to you real soon. And in particular, I'd like to thank Big Scramps, Clyde Frog, Crown of Eyes, Dios, Loyal Citizen of Zamunda, Alan Smith, Daniel, Francis Foster, Il Caesar, James, Jumbo Gines, Revan Crowley, Rickoffig, Sam Ratliff, Terrence Edwards, Tomulant, and Volando for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to have your name in the credits of my videos and enjoy immortality like these individuals, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/wormshole.